Welcome to this epic journey into the heart of one of the most mysterious phenomena in American folklore, the legend of Mothman, ominously referred to as the Dark Prophet of Misfortunes. Imagine a somber setting, swept by winds rustling through bare trees, illuminated only by a pale moon and a sky burdened with clouds. In this landscape, a silhouette with massive wings and glowing red eyes silently rises, ready to vanish as swiftly as it appeared. The distant sound of an orchestra, as if it were a Gothic choir, resonates in the background, heightening the tension and promising you an encounter with a phenomenon that is both fascinating and chilling. I invite you to let yourselves be carried by the power of these stories and to step with emotion into a realm where myth and reality merge, and the boundary between the two grows unclear. This documentary addresses all who are curious, passionate about the paranormal, and lovers of folklore. Our aim is to explore together the cultural roots, the first sightings, the accounts that fueled the reputation of this hybrid monster, half human, half moth, and how it managed to become both feared and revered. We will analyze eyewitness testimonies, scientific interpretations, and the esoteric alternatives presented over the years. Through a cinematic, imagery-rich narrative, we will open the gates to a world full of secrets. All of this, with the hope that, in the end, you will feel as though you have witnessed a clandestine history, revealed only rarely, and only to those who dare to look beyond appearances. Prepare, therefore, for a hypnotic journey. We will explore in turn the origins and cultural context of the legend. We will traverse the meticulous descriptions of the unnatural characteristics and abilities attributed to Mothman. We will discover the ways in which it interacts with humans and how it became a symbol of dark omens. Finally, we will discuss the theories behind its existence or disappearance, concluding with a grand finale designed to make you reflect on the possibility that this messenger of darkness may still lurk in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to show itself once more. In order to understand the story of Mothman, we must first return to the origins of this legend, which intersects with modern folklore and a certain type of urban myth that emerged in the United States of America in the 1960 decade. Although myths about hybrid creatures, half human, half animal, have existed for centuries in various cultures, Mothman only began to be widely known after multiple sightings were reported, especially in the Point Pleasant area of the state of West Virginia. This region, with its dense forests, waterways, and an atmosphere already laden with local legends about spirits and ghosts, provided the ideal environment for the birth and flourishing of a new myth. Many paranormal researchers believe that the events of 1966 and 1967, the years with the largest number of incidents, were the starting point for Mothman's entrance into public consciousness. However, if we look carefully at the archives, we find isolated reports even before that period, some dating back to the first half of the 20th century, although they were not as detailed. Moreover, certain Amerindian tribes had in their folklore stories about giant birds with supernatural powers and eyes that shine at night, which could foretell natural disasters. Even if they were not directly identified with Mothman, these ancestral legends can be considered a cultural forerunner. On a universal level, the phenomenon of creatures regarded as heralds of misfortune is not unique to America. In various parts of the world, there are stories about beings that appear before catastrophes, whether we speak of ghosts, wrathful deities, or hybrids endowed with supernatural powers. The fact that Mothman emerged strongly in modern American culture at a time when the mass media began to pay more attention to inexplicable events, greatly contributed to its notoriety and persistence. Like any myth that takes root, the one about Mothman also has a profound cultural background. West Virginia, in the middle of the 20th century, was facing multiple economic and social changes. Roads were being modernized, mines were being closed or automated, and the rural population was beginning to migrate to large cities. In this context, the appearance of an unnatural creature with red eyes and enormous wings became, for some, a symbol of the collective fear of rapid transformations. Furthermore, the region was steeped in superstition, and local communities often explained strange events, sudden animal deaths, the inexplicable disappearance of certain people, or tragic accidents as being caused by supernatural entities. In such an atmosphere, rumors spread quickly, and most often were amplified as they passed from mouth to mouth. Mothman was precisely the kind of character that could spark the imagination. Not only frightening, but also endowed with a dark, forewarning aura. It was said that wherever it appeared, a disaster would soon follow. Culturally speaking, the fear of the unknown has always been a powerful force, and rural communities in America, especially in forested areas, developed an entire tradition of nocturnal creatures. Thus, Mothman integrated smoothly, albeit terrifyingly, into a mythological ecosystem that included other strange beings: Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Chupacabra, Thunderbird creatures, native spirits, and many more. What made it different, however, was its humanoid appearance, which inspired a special kind of dread, as well as the fact that, unlike other monsters seeking victims, it seemed more like a messenger, a harbinger of catastrophes than a direct aggressor. Once the cultural context was set, we can look at the first concrete reports about Mothman that took root in the public consciousness. In November 1966, a group of 5 men digging a grave in a cemetery near the town of Clendenin, West Virginia, reported seeing something like a winged humanoid being flying over their heads. Only a few days later, 2 young couples claimed they encountered a bizarre creature with glowing eyes in an isolated area near the former TNT factory close to Point Pleasant. They described it as a sort of man with large wings flying by their car at a remarkable speed. This incident made waves in the local press. Newspapers began publishing articles about the bird monster or Mothman, a name that was quickly established. Around the same time, dozens of similar reports surfaced, with people claiming they had seen the creature near lakes or discovered claw marks or strange feathers on their rooftops. Panic spread rapidly against the backdrop of a population already inclined to believe in supernatural phenomena. Some locals began to set up their own defenses: night patrols, powerful lights in their yards, guard dogs. This wave of testimonies and press articles strongly resembled a kind of mass hysteria. Although the most skeptical tried to explain the sightings as a mistake involving a large owl or other nocturnal birds, the extent and consistency of many reports raised questions. Why would so many people describe the same traits, those same red eyes, the same impressive wingspan, the same apparent chasing of cars on deserted roads? Could it have been just a classic case of contaminated stories, or was there something tangible behind these events? Now that we have seen the first historical milestones, let us focus on what makes Mothman so unique in the bestiary of modern fantastic creatures. Although descriptions vary slightly, there are key elements that repeat themselves. In most accounts, the creature is shaped like a person around 1.80 to 2 meters tall, with a wingspan that can reach or exceed 3 meters. Its defining trait is its unusually large, bright red eyes, which, according to some witnesses, can glow or emit their own light in the dark. Its body is described as covered in some sort of dark fur or feathers, and its behavior oscillates between timid and aggressive. Some stories mention that Mothman can emit strange sounds, a sharp, somewhat metallic screech that echoes through the silence of the night and instills a visceral fear in those who hear it. There are also witnesses who swear that when they looked at the creature, they felt a wave of dizziness or confusion, as if Mothman possessed telepathic or hypnotic abilities. On the other hand, direct attacks are rarely reported. Most incidents suggest that the being appears suddenly, observes intensely or follows with curiosity, then withdraws just as quickly. This ambiguity created the impression that Mothman might be more of a dark prophet, a herald of looming disasters rather than a predator, hence its nickname, Prophet of Misfortunes. In other regions' folklore, creatures that announce catastrophes are often associated with vengeful deities or spirits, but in the case of Mothman, there is no invocation of a classic religious cult. It is rather a modern symbol of our collective anxieties, of the feeling that an unknown power hovers over society, ready to strike when we least expect it. Beyond its apparent appearance and behavior, the mythology surrounding Mothman has been enriched by numerous urban legends and conspiracy theories. Some claim that this entity is the result of a failed military experiment, given its proximity to a former TNT factory and supposed secret governmental facilities. This scenario is reminiscent of the laboratory monsters found in classic science fiction films which escape their creators' control and hide in isolated areas. Others believe that Mothman is an ancient spirit, perhaps even the pillar of a cult dedicated to obscure deities. In a few Amerindian folklore traditions, giant birds with black feathers symbolized warlike power or impending death. It is possible that an ancestral spirit assumed the form of a humanoid avian creature to warn humans about the fragile balance between our world and the forces of nature. Another theory proposes that Mothman is an extraterrestrial entity, a traveler from another dimension, manifesting in moments of crisis to observe humanity's reactions or to attempt delivering an important message. Regardless of interpretation, what both intrigues and captivates is the aura of mystery and the powerful way in which the subject has embedded itself in popular culture. References to Mothman appear in books, documentaries, films, and even video games. It has become a cult figure, a brand of the unexplained, positioned somewhere on the boundary between a legendary creature and a collective psychological phenomenon. Above all, it remains a messenger for many who swear they have seen it, or who strongly believe that its appearances always precede a major disaster. The most famous and shocking story linking Mothman to a real tragedy is the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, on 15 December 1967. The bridge, which spanned the Ohio River and connected West Virginia to the state of Ohio, collapsed during rush hour, causing the deaths of 46 people. Witnesses reported that before this unfortunate event, numerous sightings of Mothman had been noted in the area. This led to the idea that the creature might have tried to warn the local community, or on the contrary, that its presence was an ill omen culminating in this major tragedy. People began piecing together details, reports of the creature being seen near the bridge, strange noises at night, and even unclear photographic evidence. After the bridge collapse, The media went into a frenzy and national press outlets seized on the story. Articles were written, interviews and talk shows about Mothman appeared. The shocking truth of the tragedy, combined with the mystical air surrounding the legend, further anchored in the collective mind. The idea that wherever this creature appears, something catastrophic is about to happen. Of course, official reports indicate that the Silver Bridge collapse was caused by a design flaw and nothing mystical or paranormal. Nevertheless, in popular culture, the association between Mothman and this event remains strongly ingrained. Many people believe that the being acted as a warning, a disregarded prophet, while others, more skeptical, think it was all just a coincidence magnified by sensationalist media. Either way, this story helps solidify Mothman's reputation as the prophet of misfortunes. Beyond its connection to the Silver Bridge, there are other accounts that associate Mothman's appearances with potential disasters. Certain conspiracy theories even link its presence to other dramatic events on a global or local scale. For instance, rumors circulated that it was seen around Chernobyl a few days before the 1986 nuclear accident, or more recently near the Twin Towers in New York before the 11 September 2001 attacks. Most of these stories, however, lack solid evidence and are difficult to verify. Still, the idea that Mothman might have manifested in different parts of the world, always as a harbinger of catastrophe, has taken root in paranormal theory circles. Thus, it is a phenomenon that transcends the boundaries of a local legend, turning into a global symbol of something bad that is about to happen. This notion brings it closer to the black dog concept from British folklore, a spectral canine that, legend says, appears on travelers' paths to foretell death or misfortune. But unlike the black dog, Mothman invites even more speculation due to its humanoid nature and implications of experiments or extraterrestrial life. Furthermore, it is observed that these international reports started appearing after the story had become famous in the United States, leading some to suspect the power of online and mass media contagion. Once the image of a red-eyed, huge winged creature announcing disasters took hold, any unusual nocturnal bird flight or any blurry recording could be attributed to Mothman. Despite the controversies, the memory and fear remain, driven by our collective need to find signs and symbols in tragic events. What makes people so certain that Mothman is a harbinger rather than a mere hostile creature? In traditional cultures, there is a psychological phenomenon known as the messenger's paradox. The entity or person bringing ill tidings is often associated with causing the misfortune itself. From this perspective, if Mothman appears and a devastating event follows shortly after, it is easy for the human mind to establish a causal link, even if in reality it is purely coincidental. On the other hand, some individuals see the creature's appearance as a sort of divine or cosmic sign, as if the universe is trying to send us a message through an entity beyond our rational understanding. This attitude falls under a long history of beliefs and superstitions regarding premonitions, oracles, and celestial divine signs. For some, Mothman is not a demon, but rather an angel of warning, a tragic being destined to appear only when humanity is about to collide with calamity. Moreover, accounts of confusion or hypnosis suggest a possible ability to influence people's emotions. Some witnesses state that, upon seeing the being, they experienced an irrational fear, but also a kind of brief understanding or enlightenment, as if they were exposed to a higher reality. Thus, Mothman takes on almost mystical dimensions, acting as a medium between our world and unknown planes. In the absence of a scientific explanation, such interpretations become even more alluring and are easily passed on from one story to another. Let us imagine for a moment what life would have been like in a small West Virginia town in the 1960 decade when reports of Mothman were on everyone's lips. Dark roads surrounded by dense forests, minimal street lighting, and large distances between houses created a setting conducive to spreading fear. People gathered in the evenings at the local bar or in their yards to discuss the mysterious creature. Rumors grew. Someone heard from a neighbor about finding strange footprints in the mud. Someone else saw a huge figure gliding over a barn, while another was convinced a young animal had vanished overnight from their yard. In such circumstances, every sound in the darkness seemed meaningful, and fear became almost palpable. Skeptics were often dismissed or viewed with suspicion. "Didn't you see anything? Do you truly refuse to admit there is something out there in the dark?" Meanwhile, the authorities tried to maintain calm, though not even the local police officers were entirely reassured. Some recalled that the town had experienced paranormal visits in the past, and others were simply overwhelmed by the sheer number of reports seemingly pointing to the same type of creature. In such communities, faith played an essential role. Churches filled with prayers. Some religious leaders saw Mothman as a sign of the apocalypse, while others tried to reassure parishioners through sermons about the power of divinity to protect people from evil. And yet, no matter how comforting the priest's words, the fact remained that dozens of witnesses claimed to have encountered an unexplainable being, causing many to pass their nights with heightened tension and to pray that they would not be the next victim of a possible dark omen. Legend or reality, Mothman has had a considerable impact on popular culture. From its earliest mentions in the local press to the publication of John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies in 1975, the subject has exponentially grown in the public's attention. Keel's book emphasized the connection between Mothman sightings and a multitude of strange phenomena, including reports of UFOs, encounters with men in black, and other manifestations that are hard to classify. Later on, Hollywood's screen adaptation of the book, starring Richard Gere in the main role, brought the story into a dramatic register, leaving behind the mixture of fear and fascination typical of the 1960 decade and presenting Mothman to a global audience. In the artistic sphere, Mothman has inspired painters, illustrators, and comic book creators. In many depictions, the focus is on those hypnotic red eyes and on the wide, dark wings that seem to swallow the light. Musicians have turned it into the subject of songs and concept albums, while local festivals, like the annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, attract tourists and curious onlookers looking to feel the vibe of this myth firsthand. Even in academia, certain branches of social psychology and cultural anthropology analyze the case of Mothman as a phenomenon of collective hysteria, a rapid construction of a modern myth. In recent years, digital mass media has rediscovered the story and amplified it through videos, podcasts, and forum discussions, further boosting its notoriety. Today, Mothman remains an iconic figure in the pantheon of inexplicable creatures alongside Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and it continues to tempt the collective imagination. If we wonder why there is no clear evidence, detailed photographs, biological samples, or official capture to definitively convince the scientific community, the answer can be found in multiple theories competing to explain the nature of Mothman. Skeptics believe that every report can be attributed to misidentifying large birds, such as the polar owl, which in certain lighting can display red eyes reflecting light. or cranes, and that subsequent local hysteria turned these simple confusions into a much more fantastical scenario. They also invoke mass hysteria to account for the flood of reports after the first newspaper articles. Then there is the paranormal hypothesis, which states that Mothman is an interdimensional entity that cannot be understood through conventional scientific lenses. According to this view, the creature crosses the barriers of our reality only for brief periods, leaving little physical evidence behind. It appears and disappears without a trace, as though governed by entirely different physical laws. A third set of theories suggests that Mothman could be a secret scientific experiment gone awry, or a biological mutant. Proponents of this idea point to the proximity of the old TNT factory in Point Pleasant, citing possible chemical leaks that might have caused mutations in certain bird or animal species. Although there is no definitive proof for any of these hypotheses, each presents a compelling narrative thread, whether a case of collective confusion, a supernatural being, or an experiment gone out of control. Thus, the mystery remains intact, and Mothman retains its sinister charm and unwavering allure. Even today, interest in Mothman remains strong. Amateur expeditions, paranormal tours, and teams of independent researchers periodically gather in Point Pleasant and its surroundings, hoping to capture ultimate proof. Using infrared cameras, drones, and advanced audio equipment, they patrol forested areas, especially at night, in search of any sign attesting to the creature's real existence. The advent of the internet and social media has expedited the rapid sharing of any findings, be they blurry photos or late-night audio recordings. Yet so far, nobody has managed to produce incontrovertible evidence capable of convincing the scientific world. In contrast, skeptics have a wealth of arguments with which to dismantle every piece of evidence. Unclear images can be interpreted as nocturnal birds, light reflections, or even hoaxes staged by paranormal enthusiasts. This ongoing game of searching and debunking continues to stoke the fire of the mystery. Moreover, local residents of Point Pleasant have realized that the legend also brings economic benefits, turning the myth into a tourist brand. There are museums dedicated to the phenomenon, an annual festival with souvenirs and themed attractions, and tourists return year after year to stroll along the Ohio River, listen to stories around a campfire, and test their own theories about Mothman. Consequently, regardless of whether an undeniable truth will ever be found, the public's fascination with this enigma seems unlikely to fade, and the local community takes advantage of this ambiguity to maintain its status as the global capital of the Mothman. The fact that Mothman repeatedly appears in popular culture, conspiracy theories, and contemporary accounts shows that, on a collective level, we have a powerful attraction to stories that push us out of our comfort zone and remind us that the world can be far more complex than we like to believe. Some psychologists note that such legends allow us to project our fears and anxieties onto an external element, offering a concrete figure whose frightening presence can be both rejected and studied. Additionally, legends of this kind reveal the duality between skepticism and belief, between science and mysticism. Mothman reflects the conflict of modern man, who strives to understand everything around him, but who also feels the need to marvel at what appears incomprehensible. It is a creature that resonates with our sense of adventure and simultaneously with the subconscious fear that we are not alone and that there might be forces capable of influencing our destiny. The evolution of this legend is also a case study in how a modern myth is born and develops. In just a few decades, Mothman advanced from a local rumor to a flagship figure of the global paranormal culture. The internet played a massive role in perpetuating and reshaping the story through conspiracy websites, anonymous accounts on forums, and independent documentaries posted online. In a sense, the creature once again changed its identity, adapting to the demands of the new digital age, just as it adapted in the 1960 decade to the sensationalist appetite of the printed press. Here we are, at the end of this journey through the dark and fascinating world of Mothman, the prophet of misfortunes that has haunted the nights and the collective imagination for over half a century. We conclude with one last panoramic view. Behind us lies an expanse of forests and rivers, and the night sky seems more laden than ever. Perhaps in a moment of stillness, we might catch from the corner of our eye a winged silhouette gliding in the moon's dim light, ready to vanish before we can decide whether we truly saw something real or not. In essence, Mothman remains an archetype of the modern mystery, blending ancient fears linked to darkness and unknown creatures with the anxieties specific to a technologized world where the supernatural intersects with science and stories spread swiftly through global communication media. It is a character that, like most legends, reminds us how intensely we yearn to find meaning in tragic events and to place a face, demonic or redemptive, on the things we cannot understand or control. Perhaps the best way to comprehend Mothman is to see it as a bridge between human logic and cosmic mystery. Some consider it a warning, others see it as a threat. Some dismiss it as mere collective illusion, others are certain the entity resides in a parallel reality. Regardless of personal beliefs, its story remains deeply captivating and unsettling. And maybe that is precisely why it endures. The fact that it compels us to question the boundaries of our knowledge, the significance we assign to the signs around us, and our capacity to accept that certain secrets sometimes lie beyond any explanation. So, should you ever travel through the swampy, forested zones of rural America, keep an ear out for the whispers of the night and the shifting shadows in the darkness. Who knows? Perhaps Mothman will grant you its own silent warning, a reminder that between certainty and the unknown lies but one wing beat's distance.